What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video going over wide receivers and tight ends to target on Week 4's DraftKings main slate. As you guys can see, the key here, cash plays green, yellow is stackable with quarterbacks. Value just kind of getting to that price to where if you want to buy some of these guys and pay up for them, you're going to need some value somewhere. Smash plays aren't available on this. This is only for subscribers. So if you guys are interested in my spreadsheets that are updated by Saturday, and Sundays usually once we find out the injuries, they're fully updated. And then tournament plays. So if you're playing GPP, 150 lineups, stuff like that, multiple lineups, these guys are considerable. And then red is injury. So let's get into it. First is AJ Brown. It's a tournament play at 7,800 against Tampa. We already know Devontae Smith is out. The reason he's not a cash, we've seen Tampa play some pretty good defense. Also coming off of a hamstring injury is chances to, activate it again, which sucks. But for the price point, I just think he's too expensive on this slate still with that injury status, even if he does play. But there is some upside if he is good and plays the entire game. There is some upside there with Devontae Smith being out, kind of wide receiver room kind of being banged up as a whole. You still have Dotson there, you still have Goddard, but other than that, like Devontae Smith being out is a huge blow, and that's why he's there. Jamar Chase, same thing. I love Jamar Chase. Again, I think this is a really good game for Cincinnati's pass attack, but I just don't love it. Like, it's not the as good of a play as it was on Monday. You have T. Higgins getting now another week in there. We haven't really seen Carolina's secondary be tested too much. They've gotten blown out, and then last week against Vegas was kind of up and down. So it's really hard to judge it, but I do think Cincinnati's pass catchers have success in this matchup. Marvin Harrison, a cash play, especially if you want to stack with Kyler Murray, 7,500 against Washington. Really love that. Washington, pretty much the worst secondary in football as far as fantasy points allowed. So Marvin Harrison, a good stackable option there. Devontae Adams, we already know, is out. Rashee Rice, 7,300 against the Chargers. Chargers without a lot of people, right? We already know they're without both their tackles. Herbert going to try to play in that game. Derwin James is suspended. Joey Bosa's out. Matchup favors Rashee Rice in this one, right? Derwin James being out, Joey Bosa are two huge knocks to their defense. Two of their best players still have Asante Samuel Jr. there, Khalil Mack, but as a whole, those are two big hits. So Rashee Rice in this one, to where he's pretty much been one of the best receivers versus zone coverage, which Chargers run top 5 most. So really like Rashee Rice's matchup and price point there. Nico Collins, same thing, 7,200 against Jacksonville, who runs man coverage a lot. Nico, one of the better receivers versus man coverage this season. Tank Dell's also out, so that's a plus for Nico Collins. And Jacksonville's secondary is yet again under a bottom 10 secondary in the league. Mike Evans, a tournament play. I don't think you need to go Mike Evans yet again when you have Chris Godwin, who's got a better matchup and cheaper. But I still want that exposure to Mike Evans just because he's got the touchdown upside as well. We know when they need a 50-50 ball, Mike Evans is there. Darius Slay probably going to see a decent amount of Mike Evans, which is why he's a tournament. But Chris Godwin, yeah, better matchup. Gotten, his numbers are just better as a whole than Mike Evans right now. So we're getting to the point to where Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are going to be a 50-50 play again, like they were a few years ago, to where you pretty much guess and check. But as of right now, Chris Godwin is leading, but he is cheaper, so I lean Chris Godwin. I have all Bears receivers, just to sum it up, all Bears receivers as stackable. I like Caleb Williams again this week against a Rams defense that I don't think their defense is good, right? It just haven't seen enough pressure on quarterbacks. We've seen too many yards given up. I think it's a really good back-to-back game for Caleb Williams and the Bears. They're obviously favorited and at home, so there's some pluses there as well. But it's picking Do you want to pay $6,700 for DJ Moore? Keenan Allen at $6,100, and I think Odunze's at $52. So obviously Odunze for his price point and what he just did last week, but I still think having exposure to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who also both have good matchups, right? You still have Tre'Davious White, who's had his up and down drives. Durant, I think, is the other one. Has up and downs to where he looks really good some drives and other drives like he gets torched. So Bears receivers are going to be there. Stephon Diggs, same thing, really good matchup against Jacksonville. Not as good numbers as Nico Collins versus Mans, but they're pretty similar. And for a $600 price difference, I love that there. Amari Cooper against Vegas, I just think with the amount of injuries Vegas has as a whole, both offensively and defensively, it's a good game script for Amari Cooper, who we just saw Carolina kind of pass all over Vegas. So I like Amari Cooper's matchup in his price point in this one. Jaden Reed's another solid one, especially if Jordan Love is there. The best matchup out of all the Green Bay receivers. It's usually easier to tell when you're looking at matchups and stuff like that. For slot receivers, Jaden Reed is pretty much the slot receiver for Green Bay. Other guys get slots, so they run four wide receiver sets occasionally. So the slot's always not 100%, but Jaden Reed, the matchup overall is really solid. Probably my favorite one out of all Green Bay wide receivers. So at 6K, love that. T. Higgins, $5,900. This one is another one to where I like the Cincinnati pass game. T. Higgins is cheap enough. Had, the first game kind of slower, get him into it. And now week 2 of him being healthy, probably get a little more usage out of him at $5,900. So a big difference out of him and Jamar Chase. Michael Pittman, $5,800. You're seeing a couple injuries to Pittsburgh as well as Indy, but I think this is a good bounce back opportunity for Michael Pittman, who's at a very cheap price to what we're used to seeing him at. Obviously, Downs, Pierce, even Mitchell has had some more upside than Pittman, but I think this is a really good game for Pittman to get back into it against Pittsburgh. Terry McLaurin, very, very good second half for Terry McLaurin in that game, $5,800. I don't think he's in that cash pool yet, but I think if you want to play Jayden Daniels, who's a top quarterback play this week, yes, Terry McLaurin is a good stack with him. I don't think you need to stack him. You have someone like Luke McCaffrey who got a decent amount of targets last week as well, but Terry McLaurin with the explosive touchdown to the end definitely put him over. Just other people like George Pickens, who Indy is dealing with some injuries as well. Juju Brents was already announced out for the season. DeForest Buckner on IR. Moore is now out for the game. Pay is out on the defensive line. Some injuries to Indy's offensive line. So there is definitely some upside for Pittsburgh's passing game. And George Pickens at $5,700 is one of them I want to target. Deontay Johnson, watching the injury status was limited, but we heard it was for a wet field, and they didn't want him to get hurt. At $5,600, Adam Thielen out. Really good game script for Deontay Johnson if Cincinnati's offense has done what they've done the last 2 weeks. Rashid Shaheed, you're watching for the injury status of Shaheed, or for Olave, who just popped up with a hamstring. If Olave's out, Rashid Shaheed is in a very good spot at $5,500 to be an amazing value play. We've seen him have some very high upside. Last week, obviously, 0 points, but he was very close to a touchdown. Tank Dell, we already know, is out. Rome Odunze, I mentioned, $5,200, so that price difference. Adam Thielen out. Josh Downs at $4,600. Really good matchup for him against Pittsburgh. And at $4,600, it's a good price. Greg Dortch, I think you could consider Greg Dortch a cash play. Obviously, Michael Wilson's $100 cheaper, but Greg Dortch has got more upside. Michael Wilson was just a big reception guy, but as far as yardage and downfield targets, Greg Dortch kind of clears that. So if I had to pick between Dortch and Wilson, I'm going to pick Dortch, even though Wilson is $100 cheaper. Mentioned Luke McCaffrey as another good stackable option with Jayden Daniels. Then we look at Trey Tucker, who Devontae Adams is out. He's got some deep deep field threat. I like Trey Tucker. I liked him in the beginning of the season, and with someone like Devontae Adams out, we could see Trey Tucker get some usage. Like the matchup against Cleveland for him. Elijah Moore, same thing. I kind of liked Amari Cooper for. And then Jonathan Mingo at 3,300, I think is another solid value play with Adam Thielen being out. He's probably the number 2 guy now in Carolina. So if you like a bounce back play, obviously Deontay Johnson's a play, but with him being limited and actually having an injury, Jonathan Mingo you could kind of see a scenario where he gets a little more volume, and at 3,300, I think it's a really solid price there as well. So moving on to tight ends, we already know Trey McBride is out. Travis Kelce is going to continue to be cheap for what he's producing. Honestly, he should probably be cheaper at this point. I think DraftKings is just worried about his upside. But Chargers I already mentioned the Chargers are dealing with a lot of injuries here in this one. And when Derwin James is out, Travis Kelce usually succeeds against the Chargers. So really like him at his price point of 5,800. Brock Bowers 5,600. One of the most consistent tight ends so far we're seeing this season, with Devontae Adams being out. Even though it is against Cleveland, I still like that matchup there. George Kittle, if Debo's out, I think George Kittle is in a really great spot against New England, who he's going to be facing. I think it's a very, very good matchup for him. And at 5,500, Dallas Goedert is another one. We already know Devontae Smith's out, but if A.J. Brown is out, Dallas Goedert is pretty much a smash play for me at 5,100. Tampa plays tight ends fairly well, but you're going to go to your more reliable guys, right? Dotson's probably going to see some more work. Paris Campbell's probably going to see some volume, but Dallas Goedert's going to see a good amount of volume. What he does with it is up to him, but we've seen what last week looked like for him. Kyle Pitts is a tournament play for me at 4,800 against New Orleans. We already know they're dealing with some injuries. They've gotten beat by tight ends here and there. I kind of like it as the pass catcher for Atlanta. I really don't like Drake London at this second, but I like Kyle Pitts. Cole Kmet facing a defense that gives up a lot of fantasy points at tight ends. It's hard for me to go Cole Kmet with Keenan Allen being back, though. But we saw Cole Kmet have a really, really great week last week. But with the amount of mouths to feed and how bad the Rams defense is, not really a cash play, but somebody I definitely want to stack with Williams, right? I think all the wide receivers and Cole Kmet very stackable in this game. Zach Ertz 4K against Arizona, who also has given up quite a bit of points to tight ends. He's been a solid pass catcher for Jaden Daniels so far. The upside really hasn't been amazing, but first price point at 4K to get above 10 to 12 points, it's very doable in this one. Colby Parkinson 3,700 against the Bears is a tournament play. Bears have been pretty consistent of giving up tight ends a good amount of points. Hasn't been over that elite type of yardage, but I think it's a good amount of yards. And the injuries with the Rams means anybody can eat at any time. That's just how McVay works. We've seen in the past, one receiver has a really good week, then the next week another one does, and so on and so on. First price point at 3,700. Really like that one. Mike Gesicki at 3,500 is, in my opinion, a cash play. Going against Carolina, who's given up, yet again, quite a bit of fantasy points to tight ends. And Mike Gesicki's been pretty consistent. I think he's top 10 fantasy tight end this season, which is weird to say, but he's been that. Obviously, T. Higgins back. Yoshi Voss has been used quite a bit for Cincinnati, but Mike Gesicki's gotten a lot of consistent points, and it would be even better if that week one, I believe it was Gesicki in week one against New England, that touchdown would have counted. Strange, yet again, a value play with Evan Ingram being out. Houston's played tight ends fairly well, but it seems like Trevor Lawrence relies on tight ends when distressed. Elijah Higgins, a value play at 3,100. We saw him get some volume once McBride went out. Going against, yet again, a very bad secondary. I think it's a great price point for Elijah Higgins. Jordan Akins, tournament play, going against a Vegas defense that's given up a good amount of, like, we're seeing the trend, right? A good amount of fantasy points to tight ends. And right now, the way the season is, you have to find those opportunities. The amount of bad tight end play so far this season, you got to find good matchups. This is one for Akins here. The concern with Cleveland and why none of them are cash is because they're missing both starting tackles. Obviously, Max Crosby's out, but they still have Wilkins, who's a real threat. Obviously, he's not on the edge. But anytime you're missing two starting tackles, it's not the prettiest situation there. And then Tommy Tremble at 2,700 against Cincinnati. We saw the shift from Sanders to Tremble. I don't know if we see the shift back, but at 2,700 for what he got last week, I think is worth noting for a value, right? I don't see a huge upside, but at 2,700, if he gets you like 8 points, you're getting your money's worth out of Tommy Tremble. Remember, this is a defensive price, 2,700. You can't get cheaper on quarterback, running back, or wide receiver. So paying 2,700 and then possibly paying up for a defense is all dependent. But I think with him getting 6 to 8 points, gets you 8 points, right? That's definitely hitting enough value for you. So hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you guys are looking for my quarterback running back video, that was posted yesterday. You guys could check that one out. And then I will be live tomorrow morning, probably around 10 a.m. when we start to get the injury news, probably 10:30, 10 a.m., somewhere around there with the injury news and just go over lineups and stuff like that. But like I mentioned, if you guys are interested in getting these spreadsheets that are available at least by Saturday, but by Sunday they're completely done, and smash plays start to get put in there once we know all the injury statuses and whatnot. So hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.